Hefe says, I wouldn't trade up for any of these wide receivers. With all the great wide receivers 2027, why waste even more draft capital for one of these guys? If I'm trading up, it's for Downs if he's there at 10. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what the Jets are thinking. I mean, let's think about it. Let's talk about the wide receivers. So we had so basically, if you think about it, we use the buckets theory here, and the way we created these two buckets was based on the model created by Ray GQ right here, Ray GQ. Follow him on Twitter. Follow his work. He's got a whole methodology. He's actually very, very good on the draft and very knowledgeable. Highly recommend Ray GQ. But we use his model called the Trinity Score to come up with our buckets. Who's in our buckets and what do we got? So we basically have 6 players that are in the first bucket. Lemon, Concepcion, Tyson Tate, Boston Cooper. One of them, now we probably, although I don't know this for sure, we're probably taking Tyson out because of medical, right? But we don't know for sure. Chris Bell has had what's called a clean ACL, whereas Jordan Tyson has had a long history of injuries. Chris Bell currently has an ACL. So he might be out. This is a little medical thing. He might be out or he might be in. We don't know. We do know that we met with Chris Bell with a 30 visit. But we use these Trinity scores to determine these buckets. And so when you have this many good players, there really is no, at one position, there really is no reason to reach for them, like Hefe is saying. You're almost certainly going to get one of these guys in round 1, as long as everything goes according to Hoyle. But even if it doesn't, then that means somebody slipped to you and you just, you have alternative plans. So as long as you get one of those, you're sitting pretty then at 33. You might want to double up. You might not want to. We don't know if they want to double up. We know we definitely need 2 more wide receivers. It's just a matter of when. You want to take them 16. It just seems to me a perfect spot to get one of these guys in the first bucket. And you may wonder, why are we putting these people in this bucket? Well, what the Trinity Score does is it predicts how people are going to do based on how they did in college. And these are the people who are good bets to be productive in the NFL based on what they did in college. You may say, well, what the hell? How does he determine that? Well, some of it's proprietary, but what we do know is that he has historical scores like this. So it's not 100% because no system is ever 100%. But if you look at this, these guys who are great bets, they usually hit. And when they don't, there's a reason. Like Travis Hunter was a 2-way player, for example. So if you look at this, in 2025, he had 3 great bets. They all hit. He had 2 good bets. One of them hit, and the other one that didn't is because Hunter was a 2-way player and he got injured. And then you go to 2024, he had 3 great bets. They all hit. 2 good bets. They both hit. And then 2 other good bets, and they hit based on the criteria he set. Then you go back to 2023. He had 2 great bets. One didn't hit. That was Quentin Johnston. He had all those drops. But then his good bet hit, great bet hit 2 out of 3. And then 2 good bets didn't hit. And then you go to 2022, where we had Garrett Wilson, number 1 on top. And he was a great bet. He hit. Great bet hit. So now here he had 2 misses. So it's not perfect, but it's probably the best system I've seen that predicts whether these wide receivers are going to be hits or not. And that's why we have these buckets. Now, nothing is certain in life and certainly not in the NFL. But that's why we're using the Trinity Score to come up with our buckets, to say what would we be happy with in round 1, or at any point. I mean, if we could get some of these in round 2 somehow. Like, let's say we took Lemon at 16 and then Cooper sitting there at 33. Oh, that's a bonanza because we got 2 of our bucket 1 guys, right? So, so that's all about the wide receivers. And yeah, with this many dudes available, there's no reason to reach for a wide receiver like we did last year with Arian Smith. That's hopefully we learned from our mistakes last year. We should not have traded up for Arian Smith. We should not have traded up for Kiko Maui Noah, that's for sure. So those were some mistakes that we made, and hopefully the front office has learned from that. Where's Jeremy Bernard? Jeremy Bernard is way down here. He's down here. So he's not included because he's down here. Now, if he was just missed the cutoff. So you want to put him in your second bucket? Okay. But I just went off of this. You know, this was sort of the cutoff for bucket 2, you could see by coloration. But Jeremy Bernard just missed. He had a 4.96 score. So you want to put him in there? That's okay. You know, but there's enough. I mean, that just gets to my point. There's enough of these dudes. I mean, some people would have Coleman and Fields in the bucket, you know. So, I mean, there's just so many of these dudes. But we're just using this as something to go off of. You could have other, you know, you could use this as a basis and then say, yeah, but Jeremy Bernard, and move them up. Or you may want to move somebody down. I don't know. But that's why he's 14th here. But there's 14 dudes. I mean, Kevin Coleman, Malachi Fields. There's 20 dudes here. I mean, one of the reasons that Jeremy Bernard is so low is because he has a 1.7 yards per route run. That is very low. So that's one of the metrics that they use here. And a lot of people swear by yards per route run. You know, if you're putting up a lot of yards, and look at Lemon, anything over 2.5 is excellent. Lemon and Tate are over 3. That is very high production level. And you can see most of the dudes who are up here, they have a high yards per route run, but the thing that's hurting Jeremy Bernard is he's at a 1.70. So that would be the argument against him. That's really what's keeping him down. If that number were higher, he'd be higher here. So, according to this model, it says he has a 0% chance of hitting his targets. But I don't know. I guess you could say, well, but Jeremy Bernard is a better player than that because, you know, the Alabama offense wasn't up to its normal standards. Ryan Williams was a disappointment for some reason. They had no running game, and all of the problems that Ty Simpson had over the second half of the year affected Jeremy Bernard because the team just wasn't functioning like you would think a normal Alabama team functions. Therefore, his yards per route run would normally be higher, and therefore, he should be in the second bucket. Okay. I got no problem with that. But you add him here, and then that's just another guy in the bucket. I mean, so it just goes to prove my point and what Hefe was talking about. There's no reason, really. Plus, he was a late breakout. They also, a lot of times, these guys like to use this breakout age. I'm not so sure about it. But the younger you break out, the theory is the better off you are. This says he didn't break out until age 21, which is pretty old compared to the rest of these dudes. Some of these dudes break out when they're 18. Can you imagine that? 18-year-olds old and they are already recognizing you as a superstar? Oh, boy. So those are really the two things that are keeping Bernard down. But I got no problem putting Jeremy in here. But like I said, it just goes to prove the point that there's so many of these dudes, you do not want to reach for them. Let's hope that the front office has learned from last year. Phil Adams says, what is the drop-off? Well, the drop-off is really in the percentage of chance that they're going to hit their marks. So it's really about this score. So in this model, are we looking at it? Yeah. At this model, it's about the score. And so the higher your what he calls a Trinity score, the higher you are here. So Lemon has the highest Trinity score at 7.09. I don't know if you guys can. So Lemon is a 7.09. That's why he's the top dog here. But so where it's green, I just made a cutoff. Green means there's a good chance they're going to hit their targets. Targets are so many yards and touchdowns and so forth as the years go on. So if you're in the green, I made a cutoff. So Brazel only has a 5.89 score, which means he has a 21% chance of hitting whatever this metric is. Year one, 525 plus yards. So according to the metric, Brazel only has a 21% chance of hitting 525 plus yards in his first year. So you're really looking at odds and probabilities of guys being productive. Now, he uses this for fantasy purposes, but it applies just the same. You want productive receivers? Well, then they got to put up yardage, right? And touchdowns and so forth. So that's the cutoff, is how high did you score and what are the chances? So Jeremy Bernard gets cut off on this model because according to this, there's 0% chance he's going to hit his marks. Now, like I said, it's not a perfect model. Sometimes guys this low, they do hit them. But it's not very often. So that's what a model does. A model has to predict. And when you find one that predicts pretty well, you can use that. Now, like I said, it's not perfect. We went over the historicals. That's why it's important to look at the historicals. Did it predict well? And the answer is yes. Did it predict perfectly? No. There's no model that's going to predict perfectly anything, really. But this one predicts pretty well. Best one I've seen. If somebody else has a better model, let me know. We'll take a look at it. I got no problem. We'll take a look at everybody's models. We got no problems.